The tale of these two phones really is Xiaomi took the shackles off the price this year and just put loads of flagship components in the Mi 10 Pro, whereas Redmi, what have they taken out to give us that lower price? There are a few things that the Mi 10 Pro has that the K30 Pro Zoom edition doesn't have. One of them is stereo speakers. The other is a completely unique custom-made image sensor with 108 megapixels. It also has wireless charging and a curved AMOLED display with a 90 Hz refresh rate. That is quite a lot of stuff to have in a phone that the Redmi K30 Pro doesn't have, but a lot of people may consider that to be superfluous, not necessarily needed on a day-to-day basis. 108 megapixels is a higher resolution than 64 megapixels, of course, so you will undoubtedly get higher resolution, crisper images out of the Mi 10 Pro. But that doesn't mean 64 megapixels is lacking, and with a smartphone camera, is that really a noticeable difference? As we flick through a quick camera test for the phones, I notice the biggest difference in the colors between them. The K30 Pro tends to have some darker parts of the image, whereas the Mi 10 Pro just lightens up all of those dark areas in the image, for example with the trees. It's not the same on every lens though, and as we move on to the main camera sensor and then into 2 or 3 times zoom depending on the phone, because that's where they automatically go to, now into 5 times zoom and again into 10 times zoom on both of the phones, and the Mi 10 Pro is pulling ahead into 20 times zoom. I do believe it keeps a little bit more detail. This is 30 times zoom, and the Mi 10 Pro can go all the way up into 50 times zoom on that camera. Another test of the zoom cameras, and noticed as we zoom in, the 3 times zoom as standard on the K30 Pro and the 2 times zoom as standard on the Mi 10 Pro, but into 5 times zoom. The biggest noticeable difference for me is just the color. It's a different color on the phones. And checking out the high megapixel mode on both of these as we zoom in 400%, again, the differences are of course very small. The Mi 10 Pro has that dedicated portrait lens, which is why it's way more zoomed in portrait mode as compared to the K30 Pro Zoom edition. And even though both of the selfie cameras are 20 megapixels, they definitely shoot different looking images. There are lots of differences in the color and exposure of the photos. Both of the phones have optical and electronic image stabilization working together on the main lens and on a zoom lens too. But in Xiaomi phones, when you click the record button, you can't switch between the lenses. So recording video in 4K resolution, even when you're zooming in on these, you're still using that main lens. In my opinion, just looking at the images very generally, they could have been shot on exactly the same phone. They look almost identical in terms of the color and the exposure of the images. In this walking test, maybe the Mi 10 Pro just takes it in terms of stabilization of the image and the general look, but it is definitely a close one. I would say the biggest difference probably is when you're using the cameras on the K30 Pro Zoom. It has the ultra wide, the 1 times, the 3 times, and that's your lot. You have to then press down the 3 times to zoom in further up to 30 times. Whereas on the Mi 10 Pro, you get the ultra wide, main, 2 and 5 right there in front of you. So a tiny bit more of choice in terms of the Mi 10 Pro's camera app. But really, again, the differences are so small between these two. The curved display that Xiaomi have used in the Mi 10 phones, and especially the Mi 10 Pro, is just simply a very expensive bit of hardware. The screen on the K30 Pro Zoom is a Samsung AMOLED panel 2, but it just doesn't cost as much as those curved panels. And so Redmi can give us the phone at a cheaper price overall because of that. Both have a bottom firing speaker at the bottom with USB-C, and the SIM card is down there as well. Both have exactly the same layout for the volume buttons and the power button. You'll see that the K30 Pro keeps the pop-up camera, and that means internally there has to be a big space for that pop-up camera. The Mi 10 Pro has very cleverly used that same design, and where the pop-up camera would go, they obviously have space left over, so they were able to fit a speaker box in that space, which is a really clever move overall. They had the space internally, so they put a speaker up there and made a much better phone overall with stereo speakers. The difference is very, very noticeable between the amazing Mi 10 Pro speakers, which I think are amongst the best of any phone, and the K30 Pro, which just sticks with that bottom firing speaker. Gaming is definitely a bigger difference though. On the Mi 10 Pro, you have that high refresh rate, which does help things, and these stereo speakers are just absolutely amazing. Not that you use stereo speakers all the time though. Sometimes when you can't be very loud when you're playing, you might want to use some earphones, and the K30 Pro has a headphone jack, whereas the Mi 10 Pro doesn't. Actually, once you stick PUBG on the high refresh rate mode, things do get way better, even on the K30 Pro with that 60 Hz refresh rate. But there's no getting around it. That 90 Hz is just a higher end, more expensive panel and gives you just that better experience just over the K30 Pro. The Mi 10 Pro gives you all of those extra features that flagship phones have that aren't entirely necessary, but very nice to have. The K30 Pro doesn't use them, keeps the price low, but gives you those fundamentals, the great chipset, a really good looking screen, and to be honest, a very capable camera, especially for the price, and the zoom range too is great on that phone. Subscribe for all the latest tech news and videos. That's it for now, but I'll see you in the next one.